Hi everyone, good morning. This is the Celtic Ways morning briefing for Tuesday the 16th of January. I am Hamish, we've got Ryan, McGinley, Kevin McKenna on today to chat about Celtic. Is today the day, Ryan, for a Celtic transfer announcement?
I'd be concerned if it wasn't, to be honest. He's in Glasgow, we know that for a fact, with his two representatives. I think it's Nerlinger and is it Dingler, Fabian Dingler, that was at Glasgow Airport. So his two representatives, as well as Nicholas Kuhn, are in Glasgow at the moment. You would assume that any minute or hour now he's going to sign. He's going to have the scarf over his head. He's going to confirm what number he's going to be for the rest of this season and the next, you presume. But yeah, he's in Glasgow, and I'm hoping it's today.
Yeah, hopefully give everyone a bit of a boost, Kevin, getting a wee signing announcement in and kick off this January on the 16th or later.
Yeah, I'm quite interested in this one. The reports have been largely positive. There have been the usual kind of attempts to spin it slightly negatively in one or two.
Is this Radio Clyde you're talking about? There's some people saying that there's someone on Radio Clyde last night.
It was another paper because when these radio shows in some papers, in lieu of actually having a good contact across Europe, they'll phone up somebody who's been recommended to them as an expert in that country's football, and we don't know whether they are or not, and they might be encouraged. So, for instance, one report said, he was injury prone, didn't really back it up with any evidence, and that he wasn't very good at shooting. Again, no stats. But I'm also interested in this debate as to whether he's a project player or, a fully fledged potential starter. And I think we've got to knock some of this in the head. I think if you're paying, hopefully, if Brendan Rodgers has got full control of this, he's not paying $3 million or whatever plus whatever wages he's on at this time of the year for a project player. He's also playing for Rapid Vienna, who are more or less our equivalent in Austria. Austria is a big footballing nation, which occupies the same sort of space in European football as Scotland does, give or take. That's the market we're in. Maybe Belgian, Austrian, Scandinavian. Apart from, you get the odd sort of like Odsonne Edouard or Dembele because of an oversight by their then English clubs or Paris Saint-Germain. So I'm okay. I think the pedigree's fine. Let's just see what he can do.
Yeah, I like the idea of signing players. I said this, last week. Players from teams who are big clubs in their respective nations, and Rapid are certainly not as big as Celtic in terms of the support and all that, but they are a big club in Austria, and I know Salzburg kind of win the league there virtually every season, but Rapid have the history and the expectations still. So I think signings like that and Narotsky from Legia, I'm a fan of that kind of signing, because I think players then come to Celtic having sampled big clubs, and not as big as Celtic, but big clubs and the expectations. So I think he's going to come in. It's like, where do you draw the line between a project? What is the definition of a project? I mean, for me, the question is, can he come in and make an impact right away? And I really think he can. I'm not sure if I felt the same way with, Tilio and Yang in the summer. So hopefully he can do that. We've got a wee bit to chat about today, guys. Before we do that, actually, I'll read out the wee sponsor bit, because it's getting later and later. I'm forgetting at the start, and it's kind of getting later. So we'll do it nice and early. MPH Group and Navien, big thanks to them for sponsoring this video. MPH Group are Scotland's award-winning family-run all-trade specialist covering mainland Scotland. As you two will know, winter is rolling in, and if you're thinking of giving your home heating system a boost, MPH has an enticing Navien Boiler Winter Promotion that may interest you. You know they're both big guns. They're both going for awards at the H and V News Awards. We still don't know when those awards actually are, but hopefully they're coming up. Do you have an update, Ryan? No?
I actually looked it up the other day.
They've been...
Yeah, I think they've already been. It's just due to the amount of time we've actually used that script as the sponsor. The awards so they were nominated for awards.
And I'm assuming they did pretty well because they're big dogs. Thanks to them for sponsoring the video. Just a couple of comments we've got, a couple of transfer names. It's getting to that stage where people are just chucking out names. No problem with that, by the way. Chuck out all the names you want. JJ McGarvey, Lyndon Dykes getting linked this morning. Now, is this by you, JJ, or is this somewhere else? Would you take him over Shankland and Miovski? You're both shaking your head, guys. That's a Scotland striker you're besmirching there.
Yeah, but I don't really enjoy watching him lead the line for Scotland, if I'm being perfectly honest. I know that he's effective, but I can deal with watching him for 2 or 3 games, in the international break. But the thought of having Lyndon Dykes up front, it doesn't appetise me whatsoever.
No. Couldn't he hit a cow's backside with a banjo, Lyndon Dykes? I mean, let's face it.
Okay, that's that. Shot down, JJ. Thanks for bringing that one up. We've also got Matt C saying, looks like it's going to be Owen Beck and Joe Gelhard from Leeds coming in. Underwhelming, to say the least. Now, again, I don't know what validity we give to those. Certainly Owen Beck is a name that's come up a wee bit, probably in group chats and stuff over the last kind of few days to a week. He is the Liverpool young left back who spent the first half of the season on loan at Dundee. Did very well, was recalled by Liverpool. I noticed that Mark Hendry tweeted, the reporter that is, to say that Celtic like Beck, but that a loan move to another English side could be more likely. Liverpool a little short at present with Robertson and Tsimikas both injured. Are you hearing anything about this at all, Ryan, or is it just kind of fan chat more than anything?
It was just fan chat on a couple of forums yesterday, to be honest, that got the ball rolling. But the fact that Celtic are interested means that there's more to it. Brendan Rodgers clearly likes the player. Had 2 really good performances, both home and away, against Aizen Maeda, in which he effectively had Maeda in his back pocket for the duration of the game. Looks like a good young player. I think he's Welsh as well. He's in and around the Welsh national setup, or he will be with his next loan move, if it's anything to go by. They'll definitely be looking at bringing him into the setup. Definitely a player that's on the up at the moment. I think it could be something to look at in the summer if you can get him in January with maybe a loan with an option to buy, see how he does for the 6 months, and then in the summer maybe bring him in a permanent deal. I don't think he's going to make the grade at Liverpool. Robertson has got that position pretty much tied up. Tsimikas is a good number 2. He's filled in at number 1 in a couple of points in the season, but he's been injured himself. So that position's interesting because they've also got Calvin Ramsey, who used to play for Aberdeen, who was on loan at Preston, who's came back to Liverpool. He's been recalled, so they might have just an overflow of left backs that won't get game time. So maybe one will stay and one will go as a result. That could work out for Celtic in that regard for either Ramsey or Beck, to be honest with you.
Hearing anything, Kevin, on or any thoughts on Owen Beck? Did you notice him in our games against Dundee earlier in the season?
Yeah, I've been actually hearing a bit about him from a journalist friend of mine who follows Dundee, and he was talking very fondly about him, or has been for a while. And you're right, Ryan. He completely nullified Maeda. And one thing about it is that it's even when Maeda is not firing in all cylinders, or it's not coming off for him, his pace alone makes him always a danger, no matter what. Like I've noticed that Brendan Rodgers keeps him on as long as possible, even if he's not playing well, because he's got that pace that nobody can live with. And And that young guy lived with his pace as well, which is very important with the way that Celtic play and what they expect in that position. Again, if we were to get him in the summer, this is not. I don't think it kind of falls into the category of project player either, even though he's young and relatively untested. From what I've seen and from what I'm being told, he's got what it takes in his locker to compete for that position.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to. I mean, maybe people look at him as being a Dundee player and think, "Oh, that's a bit of a jump up," but he's a Liverpool player.
Yeah,
he wouldn't be at Liverpool if he didn't have real raw ability. And we've seen a number of players. I mean, I'm just thinking in Nat Phillips when I've said that. I just said he wouldn't be at Liverpool if he had raw ability, and then Nat Phillips came to my mind. So apologies about that point. But in general, most players who are at Liverpool have got quality to play for Celtic.
Youth academy. They've got a really, really good youth academy that's bringing in some really good players over the past few years. I know they've had to buy from other academies. I'm looking at Ben Doak, for example, who's unfortunately injured at the moment. But you look at Kwanzaa, that was making one of his first appearances at the back the other week. You've got Curtis Jones, that's really came to the fore this season. Trent Alexander-Arnold, who they made, who's arguably one of the best right backs or playmaking right backs in the world at the moment. So it's a good academy. There's definitely players that come through that academy and definitely test themselves at Liverpool, whether that's a couple of FA Cup or League Cup games. You could add Kelleher into that list as well. But it's clearly an academy that's working and it's churning out talent. Whether or not they play for Liverpool is a different story, but as long as I'm still plying their trade in other English clubs or just in professional football in general, shows that system's working. And I think Beck's another successful example of that.
Anthony saying, morning guys, as always, hail. I would like to see Owen Beck in loan with option to buy and a keeper. Maybe we could do a double deal with Liverpool. He's talking about Kelleher as well there, I guess. Hazel saying Beck is a good player but would prefer someone with a bit more height and physicality. I think that's a very fair point given how kind of Greg Taylor has been targeted at times this season, and I think although Alistair Johnson hasn't had a great time of it recently, he clearly has those kind of physical attributes. Tom is saying that he does think Beck is a project player. He says no more project players and Beck would be a project signing. And Natalie saying we have interest in Liverpool goalkeeper Kelleher in the summer transfer window. Again, Natalie, who's your source? We need people to start actually naming their source, even if it's just like taxi driver or someone like that. Just we have to have sources, everyone. Any other transfer chat, guys? How are how are you feeling generally, Kevin, about the window with 14 days to go?
I seem to be a bit more relaxed about it than most.
You are. You're very relaxed.
Because I've said from the outset that we need to resist the temptation just to sign loads of players, simply because, and a lot of this chat started when we went through that bumpy spell, and it was we need all these positions covered. We're really weak, great. We're in danger of losing the title. And I'm thinking, well, hang on, let's just see what happens the rest of December. So we're sitting here, 2 points clear, superior goal difference, won the last 5 games in the league, including Rangers, St Mirren away, which is always difficult. We need. I still think we could do with competition in the left back area, and that needs to be somebody who can start immediately, who's got big game experience, who's solid, the sort of player you were talking about, Hamish, who already has experience at a big club, playing in front of big crowds. I'm not convinced we need to be looking at changing the goalkeeper at this stage in the season. Always risky.
No. I think it would do more harm than good.
Yeah. Joe Hart is trusted by the defenders. He's commanding. He's a very positive influence in the dressing room. You'd be foolish to do that. And he still saves us. He still comes up with big saves and big games as he proved against Rangers. That's about it. we're overloaded in midfield with very, very good players. We've got the best midfield in the country. And we've got a solid first-rate striker. Okay, not totally convinced by O as his understudy. We might want to look at that, but you know, we're not in a desperate situation. We don't need to be making panic buys.
Yeah. Tony agrees with you, Kevin. He says too much panic going over hee-haw. Icelandic keeper pointed out by Steve McGrory. Good to see you on here, Steve. Ryan, who's Steve talking about? Do you know? I've heard a few mentions of an Icelandic goalkeeper playing in Sweden, was linked last night, looks the part and was voted goalie of the season.
Yeah, his name escapes me at the moment, but I know that he plays for Elfsborg in the Swedish league. He's a young goalkeeper by all accounts. Seems to be quite highly rated, but it was just the one report that said that. It was like an outlier report. It wasn't as if there was any publications. I think it was actually a podcast that was talking about it. But it is a position.
Valdimarsson?
Valdimarsson, yeah, that does sound right. Quite an imposing goalkeeper. Somebody was looking into him last night that I was talking to. He said he's pretty much good at everything apart from playing with the ball at his feet. That's something that he needs to work on. And maybe his decision making can be a bit better. But a young goalkeeper, I think he's 21, 22 years
21.
old, round about that age. He's a baby in terms of a footballer. In terms of a goalkeeper. He won't hit his prime until he's 28, 29, 30, you would say. I know primes can hit differently for goalkeepers. Sometimes you can be a really good one at 25, but usually it's at 26, 27, up to 30 is when you really see a goalkeeper hit their prime. You've got to take the rough with the smooth with a young goalkeeper, I think. If you're going to bring in a young goalkeeper like that, then you've got to be aware that they will make mistakes. It will happen. And that's maybe the slight worry about bringing in a younger goalkeeper, and this would be in the summer. You've got to acclimate. You've got to give him time. And at Celtic, you know, it's notorious for not really giving players a lot of time. So if they come in, then they have to hit the ground running really, and be an imposing presence and be somebody that can win points for Celtic, because you know they might only have one or two things to do in the game, but they've got to do those one or two things, or else Celtic might drop points as a result. So definitely a position for Celtic to look at in the summer. I don't think it'll be January, as you said. I think it does more harm than good. Joe Hart's fine until the summer. I don't think he'll make any massive mistakes from now until the end of the season. He might need to do better at some goals, but you know he does the basics okay. I think
it's not a title decider.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. But you know, if he makes a mistake, then you're looking at other members of the pitch to then go and rectify that mistake. You know, going and scoring a goal. You know, the strikers or whatever. But I think in the summer there will be a mutual parting of the ways. Joe Hart might move stateside, or he might move into coaching, and then there'll be a younger goalkeeper will come into the fold, and that's absolutely fine. 3 good years that Joe Hart would give us, and then a younger goalkeeper. But I want this young goalkeeper to be adequately scouted. You know, you want him to be coming in and given the best possible opportunity to become a first team player, because it isn't a signing for 2-3 years. You're thinking if he is any good, then you're wanting him for 5-6 years to keep that continuity going.
Yeah, the goalkeeper one's interesting. I mean, it's funny because when you were talking there, I was thinking, when was the last time we actually signed a young goalkeeper? And then the chat was going on in the chat. That's when you know things are good, when the chat is in sync with what you're actually thinking. And, you know, the chat was Boric, was 23, I think, Pat saying when he signed. And then the obvious one that came to my mind was Fraser Forster when he first signed. Was like, people forget, like, and he had barely played any football. I think he'd been on loan at Norwich from memory. And he came in and he was really rusty, Fraser Forster, to begin with, and really wasn't until maybe that title winning season, his second season, when he really, that penalty save against Hearts, and that kind of moment when he came to the fore, and then he obviously turned into a great goalkeeper for us in not one but 2 spells.
Yeah, because there was question marks over him about bringing him back for a second loan spell, wasn't there? It wasn't as if it was a 2-year loan or anything like that. It was a second loan deal that they did. But Neil Lennon, Stevie Woods, if he was at the club at the time, would have noticed something that he could work with. You know, probably Stevie Woods' biggest success story is Fraser Forster, England international. The level that he got to at his Celtic career was absolutely incredible, and it's just all about giving a goalkeeper time and patience, and look what can happen. He really did come alive in that second season. That Hearts penalty save after the wonder strike for Wanyama, I think it was in the last couple of minutes of the game that they gave away a penalty. I remember being at that game. That's one of the loudest moments I've heard Celtic Park being in my Celtic supporting life. But that was really the making of him. His 2 performances against Barcelona as well. But yeah, incredible goalkeeper, one of Celtic's best modern day goalkeepers. Just shows what happens if you give players time.
Yeah. Kevin, we're obviously not going to change the goalkeeper now. We don't think it should happen. It's not going to happen. But I'm kind of on board with the idea in the summer of a young keeper, provided they've been scouted well and they've got real talent, and they're not going to be a project. Well, they are going to be a project to an extent because they have potential, but they're going to come in hopefully. Well, they have to come in and be a first team ready player. And Ryan mentioned Stevie Woods as well, and the effect that he could have with a talented young goalkeeper.
The consequences of not doing your homework around bringing in a goalkeeper are vast, and we saw that during the pandemic, because my information, and I think I wrote this, is that there was a good chance that of Neil Lennon hanging on to Fraser Foster before the pandemic season. Various stories as to why that didn't happen, but then we saw what the consequences of that were. We brought in Barkas, who, although having a decent pedigree, there was a hurried aspect to it. And I think that, I'm not saying that we would have won the league that season because there were too many other things going wrong for us, but I think we lost in the region of 10 to 12 points. If we had managed to keep Foster, we're talking 10 to 12 points. You know, who knows what could have happened. So in terms of 1-1 now, you know, that is such a crucial position in modern football. You know, previously Celtic have had a sort of, you know, laissez-faire attitude towards goalkeepers. We're an attacking team. We don't rely on goalkeepers as much as other clubs because of that. But the way that that position has changed in modern football, it's probably one of the most changed positions, that and the kind of overlapping or underlapping fullbacks. The goalkeeper is expected to be the first line of attack, has to be comfortable with his feet, with both feet, has to be able to spot a pass, has to be able to kind of see what's happening in front of him and play the ball to somebody who's either not been marked or who's comfortable enough to kind of then play the second pass. It's crucial. So we should be looking at that right now. In fact, arguably, we should have been considering, or we should be considering that that should have happened, you know, a few months ago. So by the summer, we're getting another goalkeeper in. The homework should have started 2-3 months ago. There's no excuses for it not to have been researched, not to have been scouted properly, as both of you were saying.
Yeah, it's a massive. Yeah, it's a massive one, because if you get it wrong, it's like your whole season kind of goes to you know what. Right, I want to just move on because we've got a few other things to cover. Fabrizio Romano tweeting that Celtic have been approached by Italian side Como FC for Irish talent Rocco Vata. Bologna, we know, are keen on signing him, but Como can offer a different kind of project and guaranteed game time. Cesc Fabregas, a coach there as well, so that may be a little bit of a determining factor for Vata. I think we're all kind of agreed he's for the off anyway. We kind of had that discussion. So I was going to say it'll be interesting to see where he ends up, but will it? I mean, he's not going to be at Celtic, so we obviously will wish him all the best when he goes, but it won't be at Celtic.
He's not been offered a new deal. His future lies elsewhere. For whatever reason, he's not been offered a new deal. Maybe it's because they know that he wouldn't sign it. So it's best for all parties that he moves on before. I'm not saying he would become a negative influence in the dressing room or anything like that, but you know, I want away players never good, and if something can be resolved between the player and the club, then I'm all for that. You know, get a wee bit of compensation as well. Looked good in flashes, but it's clear that Brendan Rodgers, for whatever reason, hasn't really included them in any matchday squads. So it's clear that his future lies elsewhere. Wish him all the best, but it just didn't work out at Celtic, and that's a shame.
Yeah. Another one I don't want to take ages or spend ages on, guys, but I know, Kevin, you got something you want to say. The Times reporting that Celtic and Rangers have opened negotiations to allow away fans into each other's stadiums for the final 2 league derbies of the season. It's reported that talks are underway about us getting an allocation of around 750 fans for our upcoming trip to Ibrox. That's on April the 6th at the moment. Rangers would then get a similar amount for their trip to Celtic Park after the split. Interesting this. I'm not sure I'm a fan of that, to be honest, given that where I think Celtic should be standing.
That's basically back to where we started. The reason why Celtic, the reason why they weren't Rangers fans at the last 2 Glasgow derbies is because Celtic refused to take a 750 ticket allocation at Ibrox, because those 750, where they were, didn't feel safe, and Celtic couldn't guarantee their safety. I'd been told by a very good Rangers source that Rangers were keen, or Rangers were happy to negotiate on the basis going forward that Celtic fans would get half the Broomloan Road stand, with the equivalent, at Celtic Park for Rangers fans. And that the days of Celtic ever getting the entire stand are over. It's just not going to happen. And that kind of pursues more a kind of European model. I'd be more happy with that. I think it'd be utterly pointless given the previous stand. And I would probably, I just don't think Celtic, having taken that stand, are going to accept an allocation of 750. I might be wrong. They might be coming under pressure from God knows what, but that's not 750. Isn't going to bring back the big Glasgow Derby atmosphere anyway.
No, I think it's a box ticking thing, isn't it? The 750. Oh, there's away fans. Oh, that's it back to its best. Nowhere near it. I think this is the SPFL stepping in here because they're totally embarrassed about the state of their rules regarding away fans. They need to have a percentage rule in. That's what needs to happen now, so that teams can sell a percentage of their stadium, or they have to make a percentage of their stadium available to away teams to sell. And if the away team don't sell that, then the tickets go back to home fans. I think that would suit virtually everyone. It would give us a larger allocation in derbies. I agree with you, Kevin. I don't think there's any chance of us ever going back to what we had before. Which I think is sad, because it was an amazing sight to see all those Celtic fans at Ibrox, but there's not much we can do about that. But I think we have to get past this issue that our rivals have created, that's just led to this kind of standoff, and hopefully we can get to a situation where there's bigger away fans. I know there'll be people in the comments saying keep them out, and everyone's entitled to their view. It's just my opinion that the derbies are better when you've got that atmosphere there. I just think the atmosphere at the games now it's still good, but it's just nowhere near what it was. Right?
I think it also mitigates against Celtic's performance. Last season, we beat Rangers 3-2, and when Rangers scored their first goal, as you'd expect, total silence.
So weird.
Rangers then, having not been in the game, where they had the best spell of the game. Now, what would normally happen there is that the Celtic fans, because it's a Glasgow derby, and even though Rangers have scored, rally, there's a roar, and it communicates itself to the players, and there's a reaction from the players. But Celtic went completely flat when Rangers scored because the stadium was flat. And sometimes, the Celtic players can feed off the reaction of the Rangers fans who are there, who've got their tail up. But that totally flattened the Celtic performance for a good 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah. Maestro saying it needs away fans and I dislike them. Kind of sums up how I feel, to be honest. Ryan?
There's got to be away fans at these games, whether or not it's at Celtic Park or Ibrox. The derby has been saturated as a result. It is down to one side, to be honest with you, because they are
Yes.
the ones that started it. They cut off the allocations due to the fact that Celtic were having parties in their away end when they went to Ibrox. I think it was Edward that took the killer blow, to be honest, with the 3-2 win when 10 men won the league. Something's got to give here, and I know that they've sold season tickets in the Broomloan end, which is where the away fans would have been. So that then presents a problem, because then you've got to move other fans away from that stand. You've got to relocate them. Where do you relocate them? I get that's a problem, but there needs to be a bigger
manage for
allocation.
European games, don't they? They manage for European games. So
remember watching the game against Borussia Dortmund, against Legia Warsaw, all these big sizable away supports that were making some amount of atmosphere and some amount of noise, but they looked safe in which they were doing it. You know, currently as it stands at 750. If there are safety concerns, then they shouldn't take that offer. But if they are feeling safe, then, and I know this might be a controversial opinion, but something's got to give in this derby, and Celtic might be forced to just lump it and take it, to be honest, to get the ball moving, because we're in this period of stalemate. Every derby has the same conversation. I just think there needs to be a moving of the needle ever so slightly to get things back to at least some sort of normality, because it still feels as if, in a weird way, it still feels as if you're playing in a lockdown with the Celtic Rangers games, and no game should ever feel like that. You know, the fact it's only home fans, or it's only away, it's only home fans at Celtic Park or at Ibrox. Something's got to change in this, because, you know, at the end of the day, I'm surprised that Sky haven't intervened in all of this, because this is it's probably one of the only reasons why they've got the TV deal, is because of that big fixture. You know, it's a massive rivalry, a massive derby, and it's getting wasted because of politics, basically. I just think that something's got to give between the two.
It could also be said that the Rangers are more worried about this for another reason, because Celtic have gone to a Celtic fan-free Ibrox 3 times, where they've won twice and we've drawn once when there have been no fans. Celtic have played well and have succeeded when there have been no fans. Rangers, when they come to Parkhead, and Rangers' record at Parkhead is far inferior than our record at Ibrox anyway. But Celtic are probing that it doesn't matter if there's no fans. We've won twice, we've drawn once, we've no fears. This is a bigger issue for Rangers.
Yeah. Yes, that's where we're at. I'm sure we'll re-enter this topic in 6 days or something, when the next development is. I just kind of want it sorted out at this stage. Just to finish off today's video, you may or may not have seen the club tweeted some sad news yesterday. Former Celtic goalkeeper Dennis Conaghan, who has passed away sadly at the age of 79. Not a player that me or Ryan would have any memories of actually watching. Kevin, not to make you feel old, but I think you wanted to just mention the sad passing of him and the impact he had in Celtic. Yeah,
Dennis Conaghan played. I've got an emotional connection with Dennis Conaghan, because my first ever Scottish Cup final was in 1974. Celtic 3, Dundee United 0. Dixie Dean, Stevie Murray, Harry Hood, I think, and Dennis Conaghan played. He was a really good goalkeeper. Our first choice then was Alistair Hunter, Ali Hunter, who was a Scotland international. He was injured, and he was injured at a crucial time in the season when we were going for a double and we were in the semi-finals of the European Cup. And Celtic side, Jock Stein signed Dennis Conaghan from St Mirren, and he stepped in and did a really good job. And Celtic fans remember him fondly from what was probably the last of the European, the last remnants of the Lisbon Lion era. And I'm told subsequently that he was a very, very decent man and helped out and supported a lot of the, Celtic supporters, some of the fan sites, some of the books. Just a good man, fondly remembered, very good keeper. God rest him.
Yeah, Dennis Conaghan, who has died at the age of 79. Right, thanks guys again for your time today. I've got a few days off now. I think next week is the next time I'm on, so I'm sure you'll have plenty to chat about. Ryan, Celtic are back in a few days' time. You'll obviously have loads of transfer stuff building up as well, so I think you'll manage. But thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks for your time, guys. Give us a wee sub as well if you wouldn't mind. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, we're nearly at 9,000 now. I was looking earlier. Wow. So we can get to 9k, I think, by the time I'm back early next week. Right, everyone, all the best. Catch you soon.